Hi guys, welcome back to TOEFL with Juva. TOEFL listening is a challenge. You will listen to a ton of information and then you will need to answer questions about that. But if you have the right strategy, it's easy to get a high score. In this lesson, I will give you 10 tips that you can start using now to boost your TOEFL listening score. Let's get started! By the way, if you want to get your dream TOEFL score, check out my TOEFL materials. Here you can find templates, courses, sample answers, and much more to boost your score. To access the TOEFL materials, click on the link in the description. Also, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss the next video. Let's start with tip number 1. Know the structure. If you know what to expect, you won't be surprised by the tasks or format. Let me give a brief overview. TOEFL listening is 36 minutes long. You hear 2 different types of passages in that time. 2 of the passages will be conversations between 2 speakers. There is always a man and a woman. One is a student and one is an official, like a professor, advisor, or librarian. The conversations are about campus life, classes, and other common topics you might run into when going to a university. There are 5 questions after each conversation. You will also hear 3 lectures. A couple of the lectures may have comments made by students too. The lectures are followed by 6 questions each. The lectures are always an academic topic and one you might not know well. However, all the information you need to answer the questions is in the lecture. That means that definitions for unusual words are also included in the conversation. It's important to know that you don't see the questions until after the listening passage, and you only get to hear each passage once. We will move on to tip number 2. Know the question types. To do really well on TOEFL listening, you must know the different types of question. You can develop a strategy for answering each kind. The questions all relate to the topic you hear, but they fall into several broad categories. For example, you will almost always be asked about the general idea of a whole listening passage. You also will find questions about specific details within the passage, but other questions are harder because the information isn't exactly given. You will need to decide the attitude a person has towards a topic or express the person's opinion. The best way to get used to both the test structure and the questions is to take lots of practice tests. If you are comfortable and know what to expect, you won't make as many mistakes. Tip number 3 is get used to different voices. The speakers in TOEFL listening may have different accents. They come from North America, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. So how do you learn to understand different accents? I suggest listening to podcasts or YouTube. Select programs that are 3 to 5 minutes long for practice. Start by listening to topics you know well. It's easier to learn new accents when you already know the words. However, as you get better, you should start challenging yourself. Since you will be listening to academic topics on the test, I highly recommend picking topics that you might not normally select. For example, you can pick a general introduction to different plants, animals, history, or art. You won't know all the words and the topics may be confusing. Over time, you will get better at listening though. Let's check out tip number 4. Take notes. Some students hate taking notes because they say they can't focus on the text that way. Well, I strongly urge you to take notes. The TOEFL listening passages are long and full of details. It's really hard to remember them all, even if you're a native speaker who knows the subject. Think of how much more difficult it is for a foreign language speaker who is worried about getting a high score. Plus, you only get to hear each conversation once. You can't go back and confirm a fact. Therefore, take notes. If you want to learn note-taking strategies for TOEFL listening, check out my videos about that. In these videos, I show you how to take notes efficiently so you don't waste time and have all the information you need in order to answer the questions correctly. The link is in the description. Tip number 5 is listen for general ideas. You must understand the basic idea of the conversation or lecture, and to do that, you can't pay attention to each and every word. If you don't know a vocabulary word, don't panic. You can still get an awesome score if you don't know every single word. Try to get the basic idea of the sentence, such as whether the person is agreeing or disagreeing. Important points are often paraphrased, so you may pick up the flow of the conversation again after a few more words. Whatever you do, don't give up because you hear a few words you don't know. Let's have a look at tip number 6, know basic lecture types. If you know how lectures are structured, you can better understand the flow and bridge over the times when you don't know every word. The TOEFL lectures are very clearly structured and they follow standard patterns. For example, you may hear a lecture that is cause and effect. You guessed it. If you figure out that there is a cause and effect but you miss the middle section, you still know that the following part is an effect. You may also get a sequence of steps in a process. Which comes second? The second idea in the lecture. Other lectures may be structured with the professor introducing a new idea, then giving examples about it. You know that the following portions are all examples, right? Knowing different structures of lecture helps you take notes effectively and better understand the relationship between the ideas in the listening passages. Let's go on with tip number 7. Listen for linking words. Linking words are essential for structuring a lecture well. They are awesome clues to know how ideas relate to each other. The speaker will often use linking words like first and second to show that a new point is being introduced. However, shows that the following details is surprising or a contrast. Therefore, I highly recommend reviewing linking words. They are signposts that show how all the ideas relate to the discussion. Even better, linking words are not just important for listening. Using linking words well will really boost your writing and speaking scores too. Isn't that an awesome reason to practice your linking words? Tip number 8 is review agreement and tag questions. While practicing your linking words, you might also want to review the ways people express agreement and disagreement. The conversations use casual language, and the speakers don't say, "Yes, I agree with you." Instead, they might say, "That's an awesome idea," or "Let's do that," or even "Yeah." Disagreement might be expressed as hesitation, such as or "I'm not sure." Tag questions can also be confusing. A tag question is a small question at the end of a sentence, such as, "This is a tag question, isn't it?" "Isn't it alright" basically means, "Is that correct?" However, the meaning changes a bit if the tag is positive, like "is it?" or negative, like "isn't it?" I'm not going to give a complete explanation of tag questions here, but I'm going to encourage you to review how they are used so you don't get confused during the TOEFL listening conversations. Let's check out tip number 9. Watch out for words that sound similar. This point has to do with the answer choices you see. The TOEFL listening section is testing whether you understand what you hear. Therefore, a lot of the ideas are paraphrased. Specific technical words will remain the same, but common phrases will be expressed in different ways. For example, the speaker might say, "I will book tickets for the concert." The correct answer choice might be, "The speaker will buy concert tickets." Notice that book became buy. That's testing your ability to understand and substitute words. An incorrect answer might be, "I have a book about concerts." In other words, you really need to pay attention for words that sound similar or words that have different meaning. If you remember the general idea rather than the specific word, you will get questions like this correct. Finally, here comes tip number 10. Don't leave answers blank. Guys, there is no penalty for getting an answer wrong. Therefore, don't leave any blank, even if you don't know the correct answer. Try to eliminate some choices that you know are definitely wrong. Then guess from the remaining ones. You may get lucky and boost your score. That's much better than leaving the question blank. That's it! That's 10 tips for TOEFL listening. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions or a video wish, comment below and I would love to see you here next time. Bye bye! By the way, if you want to get your dream TOEFL score, check out my TOEFL materials. Here you can find templates, courses, sample answers, and much more to boost your score. To access the TOEFL materials, click on the link in the description. Also, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss the next video.